this?
I'm really against the way it's been implemented and marketed. And I question whether it is worth having such a state-of-the-art system, which is so costly, 17% of the revenue collected going towards implementing it, when other means of raising that revenue could have actually been generated far more easily and in a far less costly fashion. And if that had happened, for example, a 9 cent per litre increase in the fuel levy 2 years ago, Sanral would have already got billions and billions of rands in revenue towards paying off the loan. And consumers would hardly have felt it.
Yeah, yeah. Why do you think government didn't go that route? I mean, they kept telling us that it's not for the entire country to pay for it. It's only up to Gautengers, and yet, but people visiting Gauteng, they're still going to. So why not the fuel levy route?
It's precisely the why not that is being questioned by the hundreds of thousands of people who are refusing to buy e-tags. We still have not really had a transparent answer as to why do we have to go the e-toll route as opposed to, for example, the fuel levy route, which was the most obvious alternative. We have not had a proper answer. We are told it's user pays principle, and Gautengers who use the roads are the ones who have to pay because it's not fair for someone in Polokwane to have to pay that. What isn't recognized is that a lot of the work that is being done in Gauteng is precisely to look after the people in Polokwane.
Yeah. Let's break this down now. If we look at the total cost of the e-tolling, what is the total amount that the government subsidized?
Government subsidised 5.5 billion rand 2 years ago.
Of the
20 billion.
Okay, so they did 5.5. So we've got the rest, which is 14.5 billion.
Correct.
That the customer, the South African citizen, needs to pay for.
That's right.
Okay. As an economist, how long do you think it's going to take for this to be fully paid up?
Well, theoretically, the e-tolls are supposed to raise, and it was going to be originally, it was thought to be 3 billion. Then taxis were exempted, and then the e-toll price itself was reduced by 40%. So I reckon that they're earmarking to raise about 2.5 billion a year in today's prices. So that would take about 7 years to pay back.
About 7 years. I mean, but that's not bringing us to the end of e-tolling. I mean, it's not like 7 years and then you'll see them closing down. They're there for good. And the reality is that we will continue paying e-tolling and perhaps also seeing price hikes along the way.
Well, the big fear that a lot of people saying this is a thin end of the wedge at 30 cents per kilometre, it's not terribly expensive, but that we just wait and see within a year or two's time they'll hike those tariffs a lot more.
30 cents if you have an e-tag. We
need
to elaborate on that, because it's a lot more if you don't.
59.
I mean, a chunk of this money is going to an overseas company to service the debt. So is there any economic spin-off for us here in South Africa besides, okay, we're having a nice road that people can also, I've heard a lot of people complaining about the conditions of the roads as well.
You know, this is where it becomes a little confusing. There is a spin-off that people can actually travel much more easily to and from. On the other side, the congestion that is likely to result from people trying to avoid the e-tolls, it has an economic cost. So one has to weigh up the one against the other. Yes, I mean, there's going to be, I believe, 1,200 jobs being created, and clearly our highways will be in a good condition. But we never said that that was what we did not want. I think most people were prepared to pay for those highways, but not in the manner in which it's being implemented. People would have been only too happy to see in today's prices, a 12 cent per litre increase in the fuel levy to pay for that, but not the way it's being done. And the hassle of having to buy an e-tag and then have to pay. I mean, we've got so many payments, every one of us, to make in our lives to this and that, the other. Now we have yet another hassle. Yeah. It is a hassle.
It is a hassle. But do you think the system would cope, just finally before I let you go, if people are not registering for e-tags and the system that they have in place of billing us and then you have to pay it, and however the system works, do you think it's sustainable?
I believe that is one of the big fault lines right now. already we can see that people who are in difficulty financially are not really being called to book by the court system. If you look at civil judgments and summonses for debt, and insolvencies, they are actually declining, despite the fact that we are told that people are getting into financial difficulty. And the reason that is happening is because the court system, the legal system, cannot cope even with the flood of bad debts that we currently have, let alone with the non-payment of e-tolls.
Yeah. Zanjamin, thank you very much for talking to us. And I take it you don't have an e-tag?
I don't,
No.
and on principle I refuse
You
to.
refuse. In fact, you refuse an interview with another broadcaster because you would have to use the e-tolls
Correct.
to get there.
Correct.
Look at that. That is the reality, and I think a lot of people are going to think that way. You are certainly going to make very different decisions in your life if A, you don't want to disobey the rules, because there are laws in place, and you are breaking the laws if you use the highways and you don't pay. And but that's the reality, unfortunately. Zanjamin, thank you for talking to us. Chief Economist at Econometrics. I'm still having a look at tweets that are coming. Tepo Maleka saying this is daylight robbery. Athena Runei I imagine, very, very sarcastically saying, Merry Christmas to you and your family. How sad is this? All right, let's take a break. We're going to talk about happy things after this.